It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 707.
Welcome, Crystal Andrews, acclaimed writer, but also owner of a very special T-shirt. What do you got on there?
What came today?
Oh, it looks so crisp.
That's amazing. Look,
What's
that
your
was
feedback?
quick. That was quick.
Yeah, DHL Express.
Very, very quick. It came probably 10:30, 10 o'clock this morning. I got the little buzz and I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it would be.
So on this,
I mean,
can
there's
we
not
just...
many things. Sorry, just quickly. Have you had any other people knock on the door? Like, weird time, yeah?
We live in an apartment building, so there's not a lot of it's kind of back off the street to get to the entrance to our block, I suppose. So we don't get a lot of random knocks on the doors. It's only ever the mailman. It's only ever Australia Post or DHL, sometimes Star Trek. That's about it.
Yeah. Do you ever, when it comes to Uber Eats and stuff, will you go outside of your apartment to get it, or do you allow them into the first stage to get to your door?
I think we always go out.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah.
Maybe
it must. I feel like with Uber Eats and Deliveroo and all of that, they kind of service their same area. I feel like it's the same guys a lot of the time, so they probably know. I think when you order enough, they're like, "Yeah, Crystal, we know where she lives." Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering what you thought the protocol was, because I thought you're quite dialed in regards to.
Well, you blew up, didn't you? Because you didn't want to go down.
Well, yeah, I just had one guy that wouldn't come down. But just our apartment block's quite big. And so, but I understand, I had empathy for the guy, because I'm like, the thing that I don't want to do.
You left him a bad review.
I didn't leave him a bad review. I just gave him a thumbs down. I wasn't feeling good. but it was the only guy that hasn't delivered to the door. Because it is, but I would be a terrible Uber Eats delivery person.
We've only got 3 floors, and we're on the second floor, so it's not a lot of up and down. I feel like I'd probably agree with you if it was, if we were on 7th or 8th floor and you're going up and down all day.
Well, yeah,
but
I'm on the
they
5th.
normally just, if we're not home and someone else in the building lets them in, they just leave it at the bottom of the stairs. They don't bring it up to the door.
Okay. That's right. Do you have a lift, or is it just stairs in your building?
Just stairs.
Okay. I actually like stairs more.
Coming today.
Really?
I think we need to give a bit of an update, because we've talked about the positivity of DHL and Crystal Andrews being on the receiving end of the positivity. But Sevs, now shove a bit of shit in the middle, and then we'll finish it off with some positivity.
Yeah, and what's been happening, Sevs?
Well, I mean, so I was going through all the receipts last night and fulfilling all of the orders that we dispatched, and there is one order that we don't have a tracking number for. And I think there's been a mix-up, and they've put the same label or the same address on 2 different parcels. So I think...
So you basically got two receipts, and they said Jasna on it. And you're like, why do I have 2 receipts for Jasna, and why do I not have a receipt for Caitlin?
Exactly. And so I reckon they've stuck it on the wrong parcel. So Jasna, you might be getting 2 deliveries, but I've called DHL, and they called me just before the show, but I just missed it.
Crystal, how are you with answering phone calls? I mean, you're a grown woman. What's your take?
I am a grown human woman. I don't answer numbers that I don't know.
Sure.
Okay.
Or
this
private
said no
numbers.
caller ID. That's
I wouldn't answer
and
that.
Crystal, what if you were a producer for the Daily Talk Show and there was something that had gone pear-shaped?
If you knew DHL was calling, would you potentially assume that the...
Yeah. Sorry, Sebs. I feel like if you might be expecting a call, or you've been working with DHL, I don't know, but it's hard.
He also, he did the classic, which was, should I answer it? Should I answer it? Should I answer it? I said to TJ, I'm like, watch, he's going to be too late. He's like, I missed him. It's like you had no intention of answering that phone.
But anyway, so I'll maybe get another call back potentially.
Caitlin,
but yeah,
it's okay.
we're sussing
You've
it out.
got the receipts, so can't you call them?
But that's what I did initially, and so then it got passed on to other case managers, and so they're sorting it all out, which is good.
Crystal, in terms of like ISO, the last 2 months, I was thinking it's been nearly 2 months that most people have been home.
Really?
And
Yeah.
you being one of those. Have you seen, because I know you're across the stuff that's going on online, do you think there's a heightened level of arguments and interaction that hasn't been seen, I guess, in previous times?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone's on social media all day. So there's more opportunity to find things that you might find triggering, and then no one's got anything else to do. So they just start getting stuck into it. Like even on influencers that I follow, I'm seeing more like little arguments over nothing break out in the comment section, like just over nothing.
Yeah, I've seen it. I love you. There was a meme page. Which one is it? It's the Batuta. And you, in the
Tutor
comments,
advocate.
what is it? Like there was a John Howard meme or whatever, which was very distasteful. It didn't really necessarily make that much sense, but it had Kim Jong Un, and it was like about being brain dead or whatever. And I appreciated that. I was like, yeah, Crystal's onto it. You're comfortable with, if you don't like a meme, just being like, nah, guys, shit meme, missed the mark.
What did you
Bad
say?
take. You've missed it.
Bad
I think-
take.
I
Yeah, I
can't
think
remember
that's what
bad
it
take.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people said
Yeah.
a hit and a miss, which I think
Swing-
is
no,
a
swing and a
swing and a
miss.
miss, a swing and a
Swing and a
miss.
miss.
It's so funny,
Oh,
isn't it? A swing and a
wow.
miss. It really hurts. If I did a joke and someone said a swing and a miss, it would it would really
You'd be so
sting.
rattled.
Yeah.
I feel like the Batuta advocate guys probably don't. It probably doesn't hurt them too much. I think they would just laugh about that stuff and move on with their lives.
Well, putting stuff out into the world, I guess when you're they're comedians, right? And so they could imagine that they're going to have a few swings and a few misses. I tell you what, there's been a few swings on the Daily Talk Show private group, and one swing in particular from Wayne Peters. Are you across this, Crystal?
No.
Because I need your help. Your book, How to Win Every Argument. Well, we've got an argument on our hands, and it has something to do with peanut butter. And so we were talking on episode 702
Okay, yeah.
about how
I'm
you
vaguely across this.
yeah, you're going to have
don't know
butter
if
with
I am.
peanut butter. Well, you're going to have butter with peanut butter,
Okay, sure,
and
yeah.
I think you're going to have butter with Vegemite. Otherwise, you're a monster. And Wayne
Absolutely.
Peters has said no butter required for both peanut butter and Vegemite. And boy, there's a shitstorm going on. So I need help in how to build my argument so it is credible, because he said explain it, and I was like, mate, some things you just can't explain. But that's not a solid response, you know.
Yeah, no.
So wait, you
do.
want me to help you build the argument? You don't want to know what I think?
What do you think?
Yeah, what do
I
you
think
think?
both Vegemite and peanut butter are disgusting.
Oh, this is
Well,
good. Do you not like toast? Do you eat toast?
I eat toast. I
What do you
just don't
put on
like
it?
peanut butter. I don't like Vegemite. Honey or butter, and that's
Really?
it.
Oh,
Jam
girl.
sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Your
Jam.
diet is dialed in. We've pretty much done Crystal Andrews on a
We
plate
can't talk
before,
about that anymore.
yeah.
which we won't. We won't.
happy to.
Don't let Josh will. You bloody tempt him. No, but okay. Let's just. I feel like you're good at sort of assuming the side to sort of build something, and you could do it for both sides, which is great here. So what do you think?
So you're saying that peanut butter and Vegemite both require butter on the toast. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think you need to understand why
You're wrong.
why you're wrong, why you shouldn't eat any of that at all. No, why he thinks that it doesn't need it, because then that's the point you have to attack. There's no point just saying, I think it because I think it.
I think it's very hard, a very hard
watching?
position for Tommy to be
I miss
in.
the YouTube comments right now.
You can,
Oh my
you
god!
can
So
jump
just
into
quickly,
them.
Wayne is outrageous. He says, "Then don't try peanut butter and Vegemite in the same sandwich." You would hate
God.
that, Crystal.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
I can.
That
No,
is
I can.
absolutely not okay.
I reckon I could get around that. Butter, peanut butter, and Vegemite. It wouldn't be too bad.
Well, it's the salt. So hang on. Let me
Salt,
just say,
yeah.
Wayne, why does
You can just. Yeah.
I've just sent you
Oh, yeah.
a link in the chat, Chris. I don't know if that came up, but that will take you to the YouTube chat if you wanted to.
You might not
See
see
what people are saying.
You might have to copy and paste. Yeah.
I'm scared of
You can
disrupting
do
the
stuff.
tech.
No, you won't disrupt it.
We had
be
some
right.
issues connecting. So.
No, you've done well. And so, no, I think, yeah. What do you think, Crystal? Is there any sort of outside of just attacking Wayne Peters
personally.
Outside of personally taking down Wayne, yeah, I think find out what the reason is. Like, is it about the oil content that's already in the peanut butter is why he thinks that you don't need butter as well. Because then, I don't know, can we do an experiment? What's the like fat content in butter versus the fat content in peanut butter, and what is the ideal ratio on the perfect piece of toast? Does peanut butter have enough? That's how you go, Tommy.
But also, I think go Teach.
I just wanted to swear, but I don't think that works. You know,
Yeah, just swear at him.
Probably doesn't work.
But I think that it's a harder position that you're in, TJ, because adding something, I think, is actually the weaker thing to do. Being able to have these things straight in every regard is more an admirable thing in life. Like if you can have it in that sort of pure form. So anyway, that's my opinion. I know no one asked, but I think Wayne's right.
So what
Wayne's
do you do?
right, really?
Yeah, no,
What
Wayne
do you
is
do,
right.
Josh?
Huh?
What do you do?
I just have Vegemite on the toast without any butter. That's how you can have it. Because the thing, I actually don't know the difference, to be honest.
Is there also a question around volume, like thickness of spread? Obviously, this is all new to me because I don't.
No, I use a lot of veggie. I can use, like, for me, it's about getting that sort of bitter, salty. But it is dry.
Monster.
Like you saw me before the show just having a couple of those, like almond, what are they called? Like the cheese biscuits without
like
the
the
cheese.
walnut fig.
I just need something crunchy. But
Absolute animal.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, Casey's saying she's a Promite girl.
Promite. Well, that's
I get
other-
around Promite.
Is that
Promite
not
and Marmite
Marmite?
is great.
But what's Promite
No,
versus
it's like,
Marmite?
Promite's a yellow one. Marmite's red. It's
The
pretty,
label?
It's the
The label,
label,
Josh.
Yeah,
Yeah, not the actual
but it's.
thing
I
itself.
mean, they taste slightly different. They're quite nice though.
No, so what I'm hearing is that it took a bit of time to write your book and form these opinions and arguments for
Yeah.
each side. So we're not going to get it through in the next 2 minutes, which I was hoping for, because I'm about that speed.
Any
But,
updates on arguments?
Maybe we should do a workshop off air.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'll come back with a thesis.
Yeah.
Did you ever do
Please
debating in school, Crystal?
I think I did it at primary school, not in high school. I did it in primary school. But, that's just when you talk about really accessible things like one side's homework is essential for kids and the other side's like, we don't need homework.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I
the
remember
problem.
having
The high
those
school
kind of
one would
debates.
go hard. Like we did heaps of, I remember should people over 70 be allowed to drive cars?
Oof.
That
What
was
do you think?
that was a big one. I think I was on the affirmative and negative. So I was on the affirmative that they shouldn't be allowed to. I think it was. But it's very interesting. There used to be this site that would basically have all of the debates. It was sort of a bit of a cheat because you'd just go in and have the for and the against, and you'd sort of copy and paste and put it onto your cue cards, and then it was all about your bravado,
It was more like a presentation,
Yeah, exactly.
like a public speaking club.
Yeah, rather than I mean, when you're young, you just don't know that much, right? I didn't understand the rules, so.
Crystal, have you been getting in any blues, any arguments? Because I know you're not afraid of them.
I'm not afraid of them. No, not really. But I think that's just because at the moment I'm only spending time with my boyfriend. So he kind of stays well clear of any of that stuff for obvious reasons. So as soon as I'm let out into the world again, maybe I'm going to be on a rampage, just like, tell me what you think. You're wrong.
How
But I have
argumentative
been,
are you in your relationship? Do you get into many sort of arguments?
No, we don't get into arguments. We get into pretty good stand-up debates, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
He is probably a little bit more centre-right than I am, and maybe I'm a little centre-left. So there are a few good ideological conversations we get into, but it never gets into an argument because he just knows when to walk away.
Take notes, Sevs. Take notes.
Yeah, really good tip. Just know when to walk away.
Are you have you done any rabbit hole? Like you spend a lot of time in rabbit holes just researching shit. What have you been researching?
Love a Reddit thread. I have been fascinated with all of the 5G conspiracy theories that have been coming out at the moment.
Oh, great.
And they're everywhere. And also the fact that they were coming out now is super interesting. I don't know if you guys are well versed on the 5G conspiracies.
Well,
but
I did bring it up, and I was looking at a little bit about it. I'm not across it. What is the claim that the 5G people are putting up, or the people that are against 5G? What are they putting up? What's their argument?
So the whole argument is basically because 5G is operating on the next a higher frequency bandwidth. So all of the existing bandwidths that we have are full, basically. So to get faster speeds, better connections, we're going up to the next kind of level of bandwidth, so higher frequency radio wave, basically. So the argument that people who are against it are saying that because it's higher frequency, we don't know that it's not going to cause damage to our bodies, that it's not going to alter our DNA. It's like living next to a microwave that's on 24/7. That's kind of the general argument, which I can completely understand why people are scared. But it's kind of like everyone was scared of the same conversations came out around 2G and 3G and Wi-Fi, and like we end up using them anyway.
Yeah. And so what's the what are they suggesting? What's the alternative? Are the 5G people fine with 4G?
That's the funny thing, right? And it's like they're using to spread their message. They're like on their phones or they're on their computer, like writing in forums that are using
doing a live stream,
4G or Wi-Fi that's completely in their home. Yeah, making YouTube documentaries. There's like a crazy YouTube documentary that it's just like it makes your brain explode. Yeah. But they're pushing back against the roll, like 5G, puts your brain right in the microwave. They're pushing back against the rollout of the 5G towers, and they just want the government to stop rolling those out until we know for sure that they're safe. They want more tests, they want more studies, which, I mean, I guess I can kind of understand that. It's not the most unreasonable position, but it just comes from a place. Are they being destructive
though? Like I thought I saw somewhere where like shit's actually getting vandalized, or it could actually, like, it's one thing to be a keyboard warrior. There's another thing to actually, cause issues around trying to get it installed.
Yeah, I think there's been some arson attacks in the UK on some of the towers, which is obviously just horrendous, no matter what you believe. Like, that is just incredibly dangerous. And I think a few of the actual telecoms workers, so the guys who are building the towers and working there, have been abused, verbally abused and things like that. But that's a small section of the general crazy.
So if you sort of understand it, what is that like? If you can sort of understand their perspective, what's the middle ground?
Their perspective is fear-based, which so many of these conspiracy theories, almost all of them, are just born out of fear. So that I can kind of understand, being a little bit afraid of something that's new. Like, human beings have been afraid of new stuff forever, as long as we've been, in existence. So I get it. And the reason why it's blowing up right now is because the trust in government is really, really low because of everything that's happening with coronavirus. So those two things are kind of coming together to make it all just explode in this perfect storm. So I get that.
And is it, so the time, do you think it's just timely with what's happening with coronavirus, or do you think it's the reason though? Like, is there a connection between people who think that coronavirus isn't a thing, or it was some kind of hoax, and the connection to 5G people?
Yeah, so the subset of the bigger 5G conspiracy theory is that coronavirus isn't real, and it's just a hoax to force us all indoors so that the telecom companies and the governments can speed up the rollout of the 5G towers without us noticing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's really, like, it's nuts because they explain away all of the people who are sick and dying by saying these people would have died anyway, which is just not correct in any. There's no way you can cut that number and make it true.
So do you write back on these things? Like, is there any reason to actually enter into conversations around this?
And what's your username on Reddit?
I just read. I don't comment on Reddit. It's too, I feel like I'd be drawn in really easily, and then I would look awful because I'd spend all night on Reddit fighting with people who were not going to ever see the light.
Well, Sev's had to actually leave a forum the other day because someone started talking about the
Oh, the
what was it?
COVIDSafe app. They were just spinning absolute bullshit about the app, and it just pissed me off. So I got so angry and just left the group, and then I just came and started bitching to Josh. So
But then he also, what did you put the reason for leaving the group?
like marked as offensive and misinformation. Just got real trigger happy on the report. So
Yeah.
What
were they
forum
saying
are you
about it?
on? Yeah, what are you on?
it was all around like the privacy around it all, and they were trying to combat the people saying, the people pushing back against the app. They're just like, they're worried about the data and stuff, and then I guess the rebuttal to that is, well, mate, you're on Facebook, and then they were trying to push back against it doesn't matter that I'm on Facebook, and so yeah, it was just real annoying, to be honest.
What's super interesting about that app is, like on the Zfeed account, I did a little poll like 2 weeks ago. So this was once the app had been announced, but it wasn't available yet, and there wasn't as many details. Just asking the community there, I guess, whether they were okay with it or whether they were suspicious about it. I think around 60% of the respondents said that they were suspicious. But then once it launched, that dropped right down, and almost 50% said that they had actually already downloaded it or intended to download it, which is really, that's fascinating to me, because it's like, before it's here, you're basically saying, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm going to download it. That feels like an invasion of my privacy. And then when it came, they were like, actually thought about it, it's fine.
So I guess the question is, it's like, what's the worst thing that could happen? So like Sean, a Gronk in the UK, I saw him comment saying, if you want to get hacked, download the COVIDSafe app. And my thing is, I'm like, okay, what's the what would a hack look like? And then you go like, I just feel like even looking at the worst case scenario, I'd prefer to be in a position where I downloaded it, supported everything that we're doing publicly, and then use this as I don't feel like at a time like this is the time to stand strong against stuff. Like, let's enter into it. And if my phone gets hacked, I'm like, oh, fuck, my photos are, someone's got I got to get a new iPhone. Oh, I'm really annoyed. I won't do that again. Like, what do you think the worst case scenario is, Crystal?
I think it's fine. I mean, personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think where the argument around people who want to push back against almost mandated requests like downloading an app is where, on a global scale, you see some of the restrictions and laws being put into place specifically for COVID are moving away from democratic forms of government and democratic kind of restrictions and legalities. So I get why people are scared that once you start to let things go, it's hard to pull them back again, or will they ever be pulled back again? To be honest, I don't know that we need to worry about that in Australia, but I totally see in other countries how they might be scared of sacrificing freedoms and then never being able to get them back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, on China, what do you think about, like, say with all the stuff with the Chinese government sort of slamming the Australian government for saying we need to do some sort of independent thing? Like, what's your take on Australia's perspective on China? When can we push back and say, no, we need this, versus when are we being, what's the difference between being racist versus actually, no, this is fair? Like there's a big difference between saying this is the Chinese virus that, say, Trump was doing, and then Scott Morrison saying, hey, we should have an independent, investigation.
I think at that government level, it's more about, would we say the same thing if it was any other country? Which I think in this case is probably true, because as I understood it, he was more talking about how quickly Australia would run out of certain essential things that we need if we were cut off from the rest of the world, like we kind of have been for the past couple of months. So if he would say the same thing about America, about, the UK, about Brazil, about France, then it's probably not really a racial conversation, I don't think.
Is there a way of
half the concern is that they have a stranglehold on the supply chain of goods that we need, and that's not a good thing for any country to have the power in something like China. And that's the problem. Like, I know the sort of initial is, why are we sort of getting up on our high horse or like having a go at China? There has been a bunch of stuff that hasn't been handled well, but then you got to have empathy for the whole situation at hand that isn't normal. And so it is really hard. But the WHO, the World Health Organization, that same discussion of pointing the finger at them and saying they need to be more accountable, they've missed a whole bunch of shit. Like, they were saying masks don't do anything at one point, and, you know, they were saying you can't catch it through community transmission and, like, a whole bunch of this stuff early days, which, I don't know where it sort of lands and how they have such a ginormous responsibility. And if that's what the people are pointing the finger at, like, you can't have all this responsibility and not see it through or not be the people that we can lean on. And so
when can we be critical, Crystal? Like, when do we be critical? Like, the WHO knows a lot more about health than I do, to be honest. And so it feels rich being critical of those organisations. When do you think, as the general public, we can push back or be critical on these types of organisations?
I think with this, it was tricky because it was brand new. So where would any pre-existing, very detailed information about how it would spread or what would be effective, like, where would that have even come from before it was happening? You know what I mean? I did read a really interesting article the other day that was saying the WHO, the WHO, like it's the band, the World Health Organization is only as good as the countries that are involved in it. Mm-hmm. And it's only as good as who's in it, because it's not really, they don't have power over individual countries. It's a committee, you know what I mean? Like, they're influencing and they're providing advice and guidance, but at the end of the day, every single nation is responsible for its own people and how it interprets and implements that advice. So, I mean, in terms of like Trump pulling funding, and America looks like they're now not going to have anything to do with the World Health Organization. Like, I don't think that's a good thing, because you kind of need everyone to be involved to get the best out of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I thought it was a good point.
Yeah, I wonder where saving face fits in with this. Like, it seems like that's like an element where, say, for instance, with the US, and you hear Trump talking or whatever, like, he spins a bit of bullshit about how responsive he was and all that sort of thing. Is there any opportunity to allow leaders to save face, or does that just not work in in this sort of scenario?
I think in a crisis, people don't buy it, and the only people who would buy it are the diehard supporters anyway. So it just depends who he wants to influence.
Yeah.
Same with Scott Morrison. It's like, is he trying to convince his diehard supporters who would support, who would be on his side regardless, or is he trying to convince some other people to come over to his side? In which case, I feel like the saving face is quite transparent, especially if you are like Donald Trump, and the backpedaling is pretty amateur.
Yeah, I mean, the America political space is its own beast. Like, have you heard who's vying for president against Donald Trump?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. So Joe Biden has a Me Too scandal that has been pushed down, or that's what people are saying. They're like, it's get Trump out at all costs, even if it means that Joe Biden's past doesn't come up and, this scandal about him doesn't get revealed, which then is a real problem, because there's a conscious decision to prioritise one over another serious topic, which is the Me Too movement. And so, I mean, they have just the biggest fucking shitstorm going on right now, from Trump with the coronavirus to, the political parties running. It's, oh my God, it's almost hurts my head.
It's almost ironic, because that was the big scandal with Trump, was a bit of a Me Too, sexual harassment moment in itself. So it's like, it's nuts to me that now the guy that they have potentially contesting has those same allegations and questions like floating over his head. It's like, well, is this is it 4 years ago?
Do you think that
It's
we
just the
like?
same thing over again?
Do you think that we share some of the anxiety that the US has? So, for instance, like I find like the coronavirus stuff, the US experience versus the Australian experience, I feel like at the beginning it seemed like we were all in the same boat, or like it's all sort of happening to all of us. But over the past sort of month, I feel like I've started to consume less US media because it feels like they're in a completely different arena. Have you noticed sort of the separation, and why do you think that's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I only actually just started to go back to the news podcasts that I normally listen to in the last week, because for the first like 5 weeks of working from home, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
It was just way too much. It was giving me so much anxiety. The US experience is totally different to our experience with coronavirus for one reason, and it's because their healthcare system is fucked.
Yeah.
They can't. The vast majority of people can't actually access basic healthcare. So that's why their whole conversation around it is totally different. And like you guys would have seen the protesters in various states saying like, we need to be able to open the economy back up. We need to go back to work, like lift the restrictions now. The rest of the world, and Australia in particular, is looking at that and going, wow, that seems crazy. People are going to die. You're putting so many people at risk. But because they don't have a public healthcare system, it essentially means that if they can't work and make money, they're going to die anyway, right? Or at least they're going to they couldn't pay for the treatment anyway. They're going to end up in extreme poverty anyway. So that kind of makes it a completely different choice that they are facing than the one that Australians are facing, because we know that if we got sick, we can be taken care of through a public healthcare system that's world class and pretty solid.
I mean, if you've been to the States, you can see it. I remember thinking the first time I went there, it's like it's the extremes, super rich, and then there's majority of the rest of them are just holding on. And so,
Totally.
Was the writing on the wall? It's such a bizarre thing, because then they front as this super powerful country, which they are. But I mean, you're only as powerful as your people, and if everyone's getting sick and it turns to shit. The footage of people with guns at those protests, like full semi-automatic machine guns. What the hell?
Yeah, it feels like the other interesting thing is that sort of independent sort of enterprise. It's interesting hearing Trump talk about all the companies. Like I feel like in Australia, there's been a few, like your Atlassians or whatever, helping with different apps. But in the US, like they've done, like Trump will do like a list. He goes through basically every like fast food company. You know, thank you to Popeyes, thank you to Chick-fil-A. You know, like it is a very weird. And then there's also the. Do you understand, Crystal, the deal with how the government can take control over certain supply chains or whatever? Like I saw that they're doing something with meat at the moment, so they're basically forcing.
No, I hadn't read that.
Yeah, so it's like that. I forgot what it's called, the exact term, but it's like basically when you're in war and you can control certain things, so you can make sure that the masks and stuff are. Staying in the country, but they've just done that similar thing for meat, because they reckon things like pork and chicken, all these things are starting to be out of stock in different areas. But no, it is. I mean, on that media thing, are you being selective now in what you're consuming? Like, what do you find triggers you at the moment?
I'm starting to, as I said, I'm starting to open it back up. I obviously have to be in a lot of news for work at my day job. So that's it's hard to avoid. But I mean, like I've only started just really listening to the podcast that I would normally listen to, just starting to do my like morning and evening check of news outside of work within the last 2 weeks. It was just way too much. I was freaking out.
Yeah. I mean, you're someone who writes articles and is good at it. I mean, I think about the people, you jump onto the New York Times or even news.com.au here in Australia, and you see like, what I imagine is a rostered on journalist that has to cover a certain time period, and they're pumping out this stuff. And I think about them going to bed at night, it definitely is weighing on their mind as someone who is a writer. I mean, what is that? Because I can't write for shit. I can't hardly even talk, Crystal. God help me. But no, but what is that sort of aftermath of delving in and writing this kind of stuff on a journalist? What do you think?
It's depending on what you're covering, it can take a really heavy toll. I mean, there's obviously people who have different beats. So someone who is maybe more in the entertainment and pop culture space might fare a little bit better than someone who covers like global news. But I think last year there was actually a landmark lawsuit brought against, I forget which publisher, so I won't say, but a news publisher. One of their legal reporters, so court reporter, actually sued them for the mental distress that she'd had to endure for the things that she had to hear and then write the stories based on, and she was successful. And that was the first time that has happened in Australia. She was basically saying that the employee assistance program and the sort of like the mental health support programs were inadequate, and that they required her to keep going back and reporting on these really traumatic cases even after she had flagged that it was taking a toll on her. So it absolutely can weigh you down depending on your beat.
I mean, what are people consuming at the moment? You have access to that sort of what articles or media?
I do.
What are you seeing?
I have some data I prepared for you earlier.
Great.
Right. Hopefully it's not from Sev's consumption, because then that could be...
It's actually just a lot of tech news.
It's not the top 10 of Pornhub.
He loves it.
I didn't say Crystal said it.
Can we just Mason's laugh? Like that open mouth thing, I could watch for days. It's
You'd
very
love it,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's every time. Anyway, sorry, Crystal, go on. What are people consuming?
Since the middle of March to now, to last week basically, so maybe just over a month, you would think that it would still be very heavily dominated by COVID-19 news, but it is not the case. Of the top 50 kind of trending highest performing stories of the month at my news publisher, it was about 60% non-COVID related topics, and the other topics were Married at First Sight, Kylie Jenner,
Perfect.
Harry and Meghan, Kmart launched a new collection of low-budget homewares.
Oh, great.
Cadbury changed their logo. I must have missed this one, but apparently Cadbury changed their logo for the first time in
It's very
forever.
minor. It's just some typography stuff. It's very funny though.
Okay.
Designers get right into it, like, oh, it's stunning. And you look at it side by side, and it's like, I think you just changed the font, didn't you? It's like, oh, it's just a beautiful sort of ode to the brand. I'm like, what the
They've
fuck
actually
are you
just
guys
changed the slant of it. That's all they've done.
Exactly. Yeah, I think they've literally
they've just
gone
adjusted
in
the slant.
Photoshop and just gone through all the fonts. I'm like,
Rotate, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all good. What about Kim Jong-un? Any love for North Korea?
Not so much. That might have been maybe in the last week. So I don't have quite as fresh data on that.
Yeah.
But also the that really sad Melbourne traffic accident
Yeah.
with the policeman. That was awful. So
Yeah, and that
was
was
a bit of a
that
bummer.
was one
Let's
of that.
maybe go back to the other topics.
It was that was the type of story that just like you feel like you have to read, and you just feel yuck by the end of it. Like the guy, even seeing Porsches. I mean, like there's already sort of the cliche about like Porsche owners already, but seeing that, like, there was just the whole thing, I feel like really cements in your mind. The guy who was in the Porsche is like 300 meters, like, or 500 meters from our joint, and drove past it the other day, and the whole garage is all smashed in and stuff. But it was an interesting one because it makes you see that even really wealthy people who look like they're successful can be completely off their, what do you say, off their chops, off their rocker, off their chops. They're just they're just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But
I mean, nowadays too, media from Victoria, like stories that break in Melbourne, also it's interesting to see the impact around the country, and that was one that's around the country because I think it's connected to police officers, which everyone has experience, and they are looking after a lot of us, right? And so you see where it hits home for a lot of people. It's full on. But
so just doing their job. I think anyone doing their job that is killed or whatever. I think that's like everyone can relate to just showing up at work. I think that's why those sort of WorkSafe ads are so effective, because we've all gone to work and been like, oh yeah, just get on the ladder or whatever.
Well, you don't. This is shit that you don't think about, right? It's like that could have happened. How has that not happened before? Like plenty of times, and it's. I think for that reason too is like I drive down that exact road past that exact spot every single day, 4 times a day if I'm dropping Amy off at work, and I see there's so many highway patrol cars and tow trucks picking people up, and that's where I pulled over to change the tyre, and it was on my mind then, but now you sense that it's on people's mind. And then hearing about like the service workers at hospitals that are nurses passing away from this thing, it just like, holy shit, makes me feel like what I'm doing has, the contribution. I mean, maybe I wonder if nurses were thinking this in the past, like, or now it's a new thing. It's a new line of questioning.
Did they sign up for
this?
Like, do you actually consider, like, so say if you're a flight attendant, do you ever actually consider that you're going to have to fucking run around and get people's face masks on and fucking jump out of the plane and go down that slide and all that? Like, you prepare for
Statistically, no, though, and that's but it doesn't mean that you can't be a statistic. Next door neighbour's a 40-year flight attendant with Qantas, and I asked her, "Have you ever had like serious turbulence?"
It's such a good TJ question. I feel.
I just wanted to know. I wanted to see people fly into the ceiling, and one time, what was it? It just like went like this. The plane, if you look at my hand, just went like this.
Well, she said that
up again. Yeah, it went sideways and back up again, and it was on a flight to New Zealand, and the plane just went completely sideways and back up again, and it was just a fault. Something happened, but it took. She's like, before I even realised what happened, it was back to normal, and that was it. But I mean, that's in a 40-year career all that you can pull out, and so it is hard but I just wonder when it does become real for so many more. Do you start asking those questions before going in? Yeah,
I think it depends on the type of personality you are as well. Like just listening to you tell that story, like I'm the person who doesn't matter how many flights I take, every single time I think about what I would do if the plane started going down.
Yeah,
which is so morbid, but every single time. And like if I'm walking on my own, I'll think about if someone tries to grab me off the street, this is what I'll do.
Yeah. I'm a bit like that too. The key, do you do the keys in between your knuckles? Yeah.
Yeah. And I like if it's during the day, I'll just have one. If I have my headphones on, I'll like have one off. And if it's at night, I absolutely won't have headphones on.
Well, I even noticed that like in Collingwood, it gets a little bit sketchy at night. And I had my like 1DX or whatever big camera where I was doing like the Alone Outside. In the evenings, it would get real sketchy, but it's such like I was thinking to myself, if I had to, you could just knock someone with the actual camera itself. But it is a full-on, like I have been thinking more about over the last couple of years about safety around, say like where our office is in Abbotsford, there's like a lot of heroin and just like overdoses and stuff like that. And it's like, I reckon there's definitely a time where I'm like, I would like to live somewhere where I can go outside, and even Bree can go outside. Like Bree went out the other day and she's like had 3 different junkies, or like she had to like cross the road 3 different times because people were losing their mind. It'd be nice to be able to walk down the street and not worry that there's going to be someone fucking shitting on the path.
But do you think that you'll just worry anyway, though?
Yeah,
like
I like security. I like having that's why I like apartments. I love that like I double check the locks or whatever, and just because I know that so much crime is like opportunism, like it's just people just checking doors and shit.
What's crazy though is for the people that don't worry about it or don't think about it. Like we went and stayed at my wife's boss's house, holiday house, and no locks on the whole entire house.
Yeah, that's
0.
crazy.
And I was like, and I felt at night, I was like, oh, fuck. Because I'd got in the pattern of checking the doors. Amy calls me Homeland Security. And so I'm just like, but I'm not even that paranoid about it. Like, I grew up in a house in a nice suburb and we didn't lock up much and it never got robbed. And so I'm sure people in that same street have been robbed and didn't lock up. And my point being is the shit that happens at random to people, wrong place, wrong time, gets murdered, has a crash. I just wonder how much of this shit is preordained. I don't think I put weight on that. It's like it's in the stars. It's meant to be if it was, But I also wonder the focus on it. How much attention does it bring it? It is put it out into the world.
Well, so you think it's more likely? You think that worrying about the security, you're more likely to have something like that happen?
You're definitely more likely to notice any little thing. And so, yeah, I don't have the answer. I'm trying to go, having 40 million security cameras plus being super vigilant every single night, does it stop the thing that was just going to happen out of, circumstantially outside of your own place, your own safety? Like, think about walking down the streets. All the fights I've been in have been ones that I've probably thought about happening, and I've been angry when I was young or something like that. But then there's a friend of mine that just one night, these guys bashed him and put him in the back of a ute, and he had a fractured face and it full on, but he was just walking along. It was just a dude walking along, and then that happened. And so,
what the hell?
Do you say that's unlucky, or it was just like wrong place, wrong time? I don't know. It's such a weird existence that we're in, because stuff can happen at any time.
But I guess you can fix the odds by not hanging out with people that would do that. I think that's probably part of it, right? Like if you get into a crowd where you're doing criminal activity, you're probably likely to have something criminal happen to you. Surely that's how it sort of works.
Well, definitely you're exposing yourself to these situations, but if you were to learn martial arts and have a sort of you're focusing on combat, does that attract scenarios where you could eventually use that style? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just sort of floating that sort of like what you're thinking.
You're
about
less likely
being
to
robbed.
talk yourself out of being robbed if you know martial arts. Like I would like to think that I would, like, my plan is to act crazy. If someone tries to rob me, I just out crazy them.
Take your bedding off.
Yeah. Well, no, I just think you're like, like, what are they like? That's going to freak them the fuck out, right? Like, you want them to get to a point where it's like, stop it. Yeah.
You want them to get to the point where they are running away from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they started the fight and then they're running away.
Yeah. I don't know. But what about some positivity?
Do you know what I think would be
go on, Crystal.
super interesting? This will be more positive.
Okay.
This is something I've been thinking about the past couple of days, because I've been listening twice a day as much as I can for pretty much 7 days a week. Super Gronk. I think there should be a like a BuzzFeed quiz.
Yeah.
Which Disney princess are you?
Mm-hmm.
But which Daily Talk Show?
Oh, Gronk.
Member.
Yeah, sure. Are you likely to cut someone?
Are you a Tommy? Yeah. Are you a JJ? Are you a Sevs? Someone needs to make that.
Oh, I think that's great. But I mean, there's a lot of how do we? Maybe we need some sort of. I just worry that it gets hurtful. So we would need some form of person with some sort of psychological.
Hang on. Hurtful for who?
I don't know. It could be you. I could imagine people. I don't want you to get hurt.
One of the questions could be, if a friend offered you their holiday house, would you take it up? These kind of.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Scenario.
Would you be the guy that asks someone how much that's worth?
Yeah. If you're at Grilled, are you likely to buy the chips for your mate or just take a couple of theirs?
Yeah. Yeah, I love this.
All right, this is good.
It could be like.
So how do you do it? Like what? So how did I've never done a BuzzFeed quiz in my life. Is it is it just the word? Do I need to get Blage onto this to build the site? Like, do we need to?
Yeah.
I can get on Blage's case. Do we need this for tomorrow?
They're just the decision trees, aren't they?
Yeah.
There was a big scandal like a couple of years ago when BuzzFeed in the States was like being bought out, or they were going under, and it turns out that like they had this little community of readers and lots of very young, like under 18 kids that were actually generating the quizzes and generating like all of this traffic and revenue for BuzzFeed that they were
Really?
monetizing.
That's crazy.
But they were just like teenagers in their bedrooms, like making which type of cheese are you? And they would like
that's
go
fun.
viral.
That's great.
So I feel
could-
like just get Sevs onto it.
Yeah. Like Sevs, I don't know. If he gets the DHL thing across the line, we can sort of get him across to content.
Any
Or
other
maybe
calls?
you could do more low touch, one of those like the meme ones where it's all the different pictures and it just has the dot points underneath.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many though. Would you answer a call? Will you make a call? Are you
Yes.
likely to? Oh, there's so many examples, isn't there?
Hug, kiss, or handshake.
Yeah. I mean, this is the whole thing. I was wondering about this. Like, are we going to like, have we thought about hugging and kissing and handshakes and stuff? Like, are we going to be able to do this anytime soon?
it's
What's
off
the
the table.
protocol going to be? What's going to be the
And-
new? Crystal, do you know what the new greeting could be? Because I feel like the elbow thing's a bit dumb.
much.
Elbow tap's getting old. I'm just so excited to hug people again, though. I think as soon as we can, people will go back to it straight away.
Yeah.
You-
No, I
like,
think
don't
so.
think we
Remember,
we
what
don't
did
need
we do,
another one.
Crystal, when we first met? When you met us, what did we do? I can't remember.
I can't remember. Maybe it would either been a handshake or a kiss on the cheek. I'm really big on.
Sevs hugged, I reckon.
Yeah.
I don't
mean,
actually
yeah,
know. If, I think
yeah.
Sevs might have just waved.
Oh, yeah. I think
No,
you
that is his
bowed.
thing. Hey,
Hey, just back here behind the mixer, hi.
I appreciate that as a woman meeting men, I have to take the lead and just show what, like, be really forthright and show what I'm comfortable with, because it can be uncomfortable for men to.
Well,
do
that's
the-
my whole
like,
thing.
Is it okay
Like,
if I come in and?
if we could do hugs across the board, I'd be happy with that. My anxiety is in overstepping or, like, but especially in that, like, TJ, this would be one of the personality things. Would you kiss a female on a work related greeting? And TJ's definitely done that before, done it? You did it at the City of Melbourne when we were doing the Visit Vic stuff. I remember that because you did one and then you tried to do it the second time and I nearly had a panic
See,
attack.
I can't remember that. I mean, guys, I'm the guy that tried to kiss a Muslim woman and she stopped me in the tracks. No. She had a burqa on and everything. I should have read the room. I just didn't.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Really fucked that one.
Yeah. The hugs
going
are
on the
safe though.
quiz.
The hugs are good just because it's like I worry about like makeup and transfer and stuff like that. Like if you've got your face of makeup and you're at a presentation night, I don't want. I don't give a fuck about like what I'm wearing, but I'm worried that all of a sudden you're going to have a patch because I've sort of shouldered you or something like that. You know.
That's very considerate.
Thank you.
I mean,
We
I've
appreciate
been
it.
more concerned about my white shirt. I don't think it's. I've never seen the effect of it on their face when they've hugged me.
Well, it's got
and
to.
then
If it's
transferred
come
onto
off,
me.
they don't have it there anymore.
No, but
do
it's
they?
not. It's not. It's not a fucking centimetre thick layer. It's just a dusting of, bronzer or something.
Mm. What about air kisses? Is that like that's a bit lame, isn't it? Air kisses.
No, I'm not a fan of the air
What
kiss.
about the so when we when we're in the US, we bumped into friends from Europe, and it was Mimi. Do you remember this, TJ? And like she's a double kisser, but
Where
it's
was that? Where did we do that?
that was was it Venice? Where's when we're walking with Diavella?
That's right. Yeah, Venice.
Yeah, and so I did do the double kit. Like I sort of had
the ice cream
watched
shop,
YouTube videos where she'd been in them and seen that she was a double kisser, and so I was able to execute
Yeah.
on one of my
Yeah.
first double kisses. But then it's working out. Is it the left? Is it the right first? It's anyway. We don't need to get into it.
I think it's more of a problem for the double kisses of the world, to be honest.
no.
think
I think
about
if
it.
you're in Europe, I think that a single kiss is like what you sort of did you get busy halfway through? Like it's an unfinished it's like shaking someone's hand but then not putting any
Yeah.
pressure. You know,
I mean, the
It's
thing
just-
is, there's so
No,
many great
that's
Gronks
all
in
right.
it. There's so many great Gronks that I want to just cuddle when I see them for the first time. But did we do that? Or
yeah,
is
we
it
could.
just, you know?
It's a little hug station. I mean, that's the funny thing with the Minimalists. When I filmed them, Josh and Ryan, they have a lot. Like, I reckon that they had anxiety around it, and so they have a line which is like, "Oh, I'm a hugger," and so they go in for the hug. Like, and everyone knows. Like, it's gotten to the point where their community,
really?
it's like, "Oh, you're a hugger." Like, I'm here for my hug, and that's too much for me.
Oh, so
I
they
want
like
to hug, but I don't
announce
want to.
it before.
Yeah, I don't want to talk
Like
about
you
it.
go in and you say, "I'm a hugger."
Do you think that's too much?
Yeah.
I'm a hugger. It feels
Yeah.
because it's also like it's expressing, because the issue isn't whether you're a hugger, it's whether they're a hugger, isn't it? Like they're missing the point, I think.
And also, if you're walking towards someone with open arms, what else could that possibly mean?
Yeah, but the thing is, what does it like? Sebs, have you ever been rejected from a hug?
Not that I can remember. I feel like it'd definitely stand out if I had.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'd remember it if I. It'd be it wouldn't be great.
I've kissed someone's ear before.
Yeah, I mean, you
Just-
have that. You have that.
Because that's the whole one where it's like you go for the hug, but you think it's a hug and kiss.
Think about
scenario.
how loud that would have been for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my ears are ringing. No, but there could be, I mean, the other option is like Crystal, if you do you were talking about it was either a handshake or a kiss. If you do the kiss, should you be hugging at the same time? Like, I feel like the kiss without the hug is actually less personal potentially.
Yeah, a
It's less
kiss and a
warm.
hug
Yeah.
is like quite intimate, isn't it?
But
It's
it
almost
feels
a
like
cuddle.
that feels like it makes more sense. Just a kiss and then like moving away. I don't know, but we don't have to worry about that anymore.
What are you going to do with Grace, Mr. 97? Because that's you've got more.
Oh,
of the
here we go.
predicament.
Yeah.
Here we go. Are you gonna run the? No. Okay.
Oh yeah, we
Run
did
the
a bit.
banner.
Yeah, we can run the banner.
You wanna?
Yeah. What are you gonna do the first time?
The first time I meet Grace, it'll be a kiss.
Of course, it's gonna be. What sort of is it? Like a French kiss at the airport? Is that too much? Is a French kiss at the airport too much?
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. Nah, I don't know.
The best thing is that if she
we'll
comes
see in the
over
moment,
here-
you know.
Russ will be fine with it.
you need a
It's all
quarantine for 14 days after
Yeah.
you've first met. That's going to be great. Love that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think like it's the greeting thing. I feel like we should actually have some standards, like
Roll out
community,
some
Gronk rules. Like if we could get some Gronk rules, like we could actually fix all of these issues in society. Like let's dial it all in. Let's have a protocol. You WhatsApp me if you're not comfortable with a hug beforehand.
You WhatsApp
or maybe in the VIP Gronk.
We'll put it in
actually,
the air table.
in the VIP Gronk, we'll do a drop down,
Let
hug,
us know what
kiss,
you want.
handshake, high five, and you just select which one,
or
and then
wave.
we put it in
Are
the
we
system.
putting wave in there? Wave's pretty funny.
I mean, waves, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, waves
you
a
know
bit
what? The
outrageous.
one thing about this time is that everyone's on the same page. You don't have to do anything. You just acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
each other. G'day. And so when you see anyone, it's just standing back. It has taken any ambiguity out of it. So it has been nice in that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other news, Crystal? Anything else happening in your life?
I'm very excited for tomorrow. Are you guys pumped?
Yeah, pumped.
I mean, so we need to still deliver. We've got so we did 18 orders via DHL, and then we're doing
20.
and so then we're doing the rest via hand. And so how many orders? There was 29 additional orders, I guess. But then there was a few that are just like local, that like Brie and stuff like that have already Rory and stuff. And so we're now going to
Is
basically
Adam
if you're
Brewer
in,
getting his by hand?
who was that? Sorry.
Is Adam Brewer
Adam.
getting his by hand?
Oh yeah,
Did he
definitely?
yes, he will.
DHL?
He will be. Yeah, Richmond. Tommy will be dropping that off when
Great.
picking up Amy from work. But then, if you're in Brunswick, TJ, is it okay? Can you go to Brunswick? There's 4 orders in Brunswick. It's
that's it. Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
chunk.
Good
We'll
one.
definitely get and then Berwick, Clyde North, Cranbourne, and Warrigal. Sevs and I are going to be doing that delivery straight after this. I won't leave the car, but Sevs will run in and drop it off. but I will wave from the outside. It's a Corona thing,
great.
and then and just speed.
Yeah.
And just speed.
Huh? It's just
Is
a
it you said
speed
you were
thing.
speed?
You're not driving. I'm going to drive.
Sorry. No, I thought you said and just speed as into the next.
Oh, yeah. Well, the big question is, though, Crystal, are we going to make today's episode at 4 p.m? Because
It'll be fine.
if we're going to, we're going to wrap this up
Okay. All right.
and get on the road.
Get on the road.
So are you going to, Crystal? Are you going to get involved? So you're going to be at Friday night drinks?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
And if you guys need me to do something tomorrow, just let me know.
Oh, perfect. Well, we're
I'm-
going to do
I'm
the
not running a
commitment
marathon.
crew. The commitment crew is probably too much for you if you're working on tomorrow, because commitment crew, I'm going to do a WhatsApp now to everyone in the VIP Gronks. Commitment crew will be in a Zoom call, and the commitment crew stays on for 24 hours. We're going to play games. There's going to be rewards, all of that sort of stuff. But it means that we can cut to you at any time, and we can have a bit of banter and all that sort of thing. So it could be 8 in the morning, it could be 2 in the morning, it could be middle of the day. And so get your you'll just need to have your computer or whatever set up.
Wonder if someone will sleep with us. Have us on their laptop in their bed.
Surely.
That's kind of cute.
But I think the other thing too is what, Gemma? JJ does this thing every time. He tells me I'm doing a special thing. Tells me I'm doing... Oh, no, Gem, we're going to have you on as well. No, Gem, it's all Gronk Squad. Then I found out on the show that it's actually for everyone. No, it's for the VIP Gronks. But there's also the Gronk Cam. And so the Gronk Cam is if you have a good view, if you live... It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in suburbia, you could be in the city, you could be in a regional town, anywhere in the world. We've got our mate Charles in Bathurst, who just turned 17.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah, turned 17 today. Happy birthday, Charles.
Happy
Charles.
birthday, Charles.
Charles is going to be managing the Gronk cams. So you basically can show your view. If you've got a great view, all you need is an iPhone or an Android. You plug it into power, you point it out your window, and then we'll cross to Charles and say, Charles, what's happening on the Gronk cams? And we'll have different areas.
I also thought not limited to views. What about if you have a sick fish tank and we just check in
that
with
would be
the fish?
great. Yeah, I
What
like
if you've
that.
got something on the slow cooker and we check in on
or if you're
what's in the
working
slow
in an
cooker?
aquarium,
That's good.
that'd be great.
If you work in a what?
In an aquarium.
They're all closed.
So
unless
well,
you just-
I mean, you can
unless they're
still
just
work
there
in
to
them,
feed
I'm
it.
sure. Yeah.
It's a big
No,
ask.
they're all rotten tanks.
No, I think that's
Look, if you just work anywhere where there's something going on,
yeah,
we want it.
yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
Ozpost facility. How great would that be?
Yeah, good. DHL.
Yeah, well, sure.
Yeah.
That works as well.
Yeah, maybe answer your phone.
Maybe we'll
next
see
time,
our order.
'cause
Yeah.
Yeah.
we could.
Okay, great.
We could get that.
And so, thanks everyone. We'll be sending you messages before we go to your place as well. But
And also, Crystal Casey is buying your book. She just listened to the last episode you were on, and it was one of her favourites. So, if you haven't already,
Casey,
buy
bless your
Crystal's
soul.
book.
Thank you.
How to Win Every Argument. Love it.
thank you, Crystal. Thank you for being a top quality Gronk. And hopefully 24 hours will be okay and everything will be good. And yeah, it would be good to get you to jump on. Maybe it would be good to do some form of trivia, or maybe we could do some form of quiz. Maybe we could start working on this this Gronk quiz.
I love the Gronk quiz.
Because I've got a bunch of because we could do a bunch of yes or no's pretty quickly and build something out. So all right, leave it with us. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, everyone in
Pleasure.
the chat. Happy birthday again, Charles. Grace has said happy birthday in the chat. Okay, we're off to do some deliveries. You can listen to us through the podcasts, obviously, but tomorrow, 7 a.m. Friday to 7 a.m. Saturday. TJ, I've gotten really good not asking TJ, Sev's what he's laughing at because it'll be dumb. It'll be because I stumbled or something.
Yeah,
Why
literally.
was it? What was it?
No, it was literally.
He just did it. You just
I did it. I fucking can't help myself. 7 to 7. It's going to be massive. We've got a bunch of amazing guests, and would love for you to be a part of it. And we'll be reading the chat and getting amongst it. So we'll see you at 4 p.m. Otherwise, have a good one, guys. Thanks, Crystal.
See you guys.